بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, my dear respected brothers and sisters, inshallah we're here to talk about Ramadan. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself has placed great merit in the month of Ramadan. And our intention today, and maybe the couple of weeks going forward, inshallah, until the month of Ramadan, is try to really zone in into the importance of the month and the amount of effort that we have to put out to try to maximize our benefit. Ramadan is the pinnacle of a believer's year. Is one of the things we all anticipate. Is one of the things we all hope for. We know of the dua that is quite common amongst the masses at the time of Ramadan or before the month of Ramadan, on the type of Rajab and Sha'ban. Allahumma barik lana fi Rajab wa Sha'ban wa ballighna Ramadan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the barakah of the month of Rajab and Sha'ban. We have countdowns coming on. We have reminders that being shown on things like social media and these type of things. Could just things. Anybody in the office? Will they keep quiet or what? All right. Yeah, so the month of Ramadan is such that it comes up every year, but preparing yourself and making sure that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercies descend is something of a spiritual journey, and it's something that we have to focus on from the spiritual aspect as well as obviously the physical aspect, the psychological aspect, the social aspect, the spiritual aspect, which I mentioned. Obviously, when a person is preparing for something, he should understand the merits of it. You know, like when we have dignitaries coming to a country, they literally go and they ask experts of that country, hey, when I go to that place, what do I do? How do I greet the people there? What are the rituals and the customs of the people? How do I go about treating with the dignitaries of those places? How do I greet with the women? How do I greet with the men? You know, quite famous right now on social media and these kind of things. You see how the new leader of Syria is being met by so many delegations, and even there it's a highlight of discussion how he's meeting with women and so on. There's a mannerism to do that. So in the month of Ramadan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a gift where Allah wants us to reconnect to him in a wholesome way, a way that brings us to our purity, the pinnacle of our existence. And can I ask you, what would that be? What is the manner that a person goes to his closest to his Lord? I'm not really talking about physically, but I'm talking about how do you become really close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What is that one way to come so close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy showers upon you? Salam. Dua. What is the essence of dua? Because a dua mukhal ibadah, dua is the essence of your worship. So that takes you to the next thing. Neediness. Yeah. So humility, tawadu, inkisari. You are putting yourself in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the son is He's Rabbul Alameen. He is Allah and we are nothing. So that's the fastest way to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Your servitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in such a way, in such a manner that everything in you completely humbles itself towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you notice the essence of many of the ibadah that we do, like a dua, mukhul ibadah. Dua itself is the essence of your ibadah, or the source, or the drive of your ibadah. What is dua? Dua is humility in asking Allah who is almighty. Right? When you go, for example, for Hajj and you put on your ihram and you go in the state of ihram, the essence of your ihram is to ensure that you are becoming nothing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That you know what? People will push you around, you'll be sweaty, people will be smelling, you're making tawaf, you're disheveled, you don't have any perfume, you're in front of Allah as nothing. This is why when you come to things like the talbiyah, labbaik Allahumma labbaik labbaik la sharika lak labbaik innal hamda wan ni'mata lak wal mulk la sharika lak. The essence of the word as well, it just gives you that understanding that you know what, you are here to humble yourself completely. That you know that you know what, I am nothing. That's the essence of what you want to gain. So the month of Ramadan, the fastest way to gain that is by purifying yourself and your heart and your connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala becomes real. Now, we know about the month of Ramadan. One of the main ibadah that we do is fasting. So it has something called, in fact, the whole meaning of the month of Ramadan, Ramadan comes from the word shiddatu wa shams, the heaviness of or the shidda, the scorchingness of the sun, the heavy heat, the heat which burns. As it would be said, it would be used, that word Ramadan, is that the sheep liver is becoming fried in the sun. Basically, is being affected, is becoming dehydrated, it's affecting the animals. So when Ramadan is there, the ulama mention it is there to burn off the sins of a believer, to ensure that a believer is entering the month of Ramadan in whatever state, but definitely when he leaves the month of Ramadan, he is exiting Ramadan without anything that is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, any sin, but he would exit with blessings and barakat of the month. So this is the essence of the month of Ramadan and what we want to strive for. Now to get to that, to ensure that we reach the month of Ramadan that way, you have to prepare yourselves. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he mentions that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Whosoever fasts in the month of Ramadan out of sincere faith, right? You man sama Ramadana imanan wa ihtisaban ghufira lahu ma taqaddama min dhanbi." That person who fasts in the month of Ramadan, hoping to attain Allah's reward, hoping that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives him, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses him and gives him some barakat, then and only then, with that effort and with that hope and with that dua, then his sins will be forgiven. So when we come to the month of Ramadan, man sama Ramadan, you're fasting in the month of Ramadan, imanan, with firm faith. Now that firm faith that we're talking about, where does it come from again? Iman. It comes back to the same thing I mentioned just now. You have tawadu. You have that reality that you're nothing. That you know what, you're begging Allah. You're a beggar in front of Allah. Sometimes it is a very good thing. The practice of the pious predecessors, they would, whenever there's a moment like this, Ramadan, they're making dua, they're doing tawaf, they praying salah, any ibadah that they're doing, anything that they're doing, they're giving charity. They have this fear that it is not going to be accepted and it is not good enough. But yet you're a beggar begging Allah for His mercy that I am doing something that is not good enough. But you, Allah, is Ar-Rahman, you are Rahim, you are Halal Mushkalat, you are the one who solves all problems. I am turning to you. I don't even deserve your mercy. I don't even deserve your love. I don't even deserve you taking me out of my difficulty. I am most deserving of hardship and difficulty and punishment, but you are Allah. So when you place Allah in the right thing, this is why one of the most powerful surahs of the Quran, and the one that has, encompasses the essence of Allah, is short surah. Which one? Surah Ikhlas. Right? Qul huwallahu ahad. Say what? Qul huwallahu ahad. He is Allah, one. Qul huwallahu ahad. Allahu samad. Allah who is samad. Allah who is independent. Everything else is dependent on him. Allahu samad. Lam yalid walam yulad. He is never born, he was never born or never begotten. You understand the essence of who was Allah. That is not according to how I feel today, or what my meaning or my little existence have any merit to something of that God which has grace beyond even our existence. We were existed, he never was existing. I mean, existing, there was no beginning and there was no end. He's always been there, Allah. So lam yalid walam yulad walam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. And there's nothing that you can compare to him. There's nothing that you can imagine that, Allah is like this, Allah is like that. Has this kind of limitation. Allah has, like, if we understood, his physical form, or like if we understand. No, we don't understand anything about Allah. The reality is we are very limited. So this is the essence of your servitude. This is what you call ubudiyat. This is what you call becoming a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Abdullah, Amatullah. Getting that servitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala means that you realize you're nothing. That you understand that your existence is not even to be mentioned except what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows. So this is the iman that we're looking at. This is the faith that it is He, Allah alone, that we worship. This is why the Mashaykh, they would say that, what? La mawjuda illallah. There's nothing existing except Allah. Your house doesn't exist. What was the existence of your house with regard to Allah in comparison? Was the difference? Was the existence of um this masjid with regard to Allah? Was the existence of this world? In fact, was the existence of any of the leaders of the world with regard to Allah in comparison to Allah? La mawjood. There's nothing existing really. Is there anything that really exists? And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment, before the day of judgment, He will destroy every single thing. He will destroy all the humans. He will destroy all the prophets of Allah. He will destroy all of the angels. He will destroy the heavens. He will destroy the earth. He will destroy everything that ever existed. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would ask the question, Limanil mulkul yawm? Whose authority, whose sovereignty is there today? And then Allah Himself will reply in His greatness and His takabbur and His pride. That's why pride is for Allah. That's why Allah has full authority to pride. This is Allah's quality. This is the quality of God. This is the quality of the Allah. He is the greatest. And that's why you should humiliate yourself in front of Allah. Not in front of people. Humiliate yourself in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Humiliating yourself in front of Allah is it essence to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you realize you're nothing, then you realize that then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala somewhat recognizes you, because now you've realized your placement. And this is how to get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the tawfiq, because the reality is that we're so far from this reality. The Mashayikh rahimahullah, they would understand this in its totality. This is why when they react to certain instances, certain issues, you would see that, what, this person knows, he's not just artificially humble, but he is really humble. This is real humility. And you would see that obviously evident in the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So to encapsulate what I was saying just now, reality is, if we want to get to the month of Ramadan and really absorb the essence of it, we really need to work on ourselves. We need to realize that, you know what, our connection is with Allah, that we gain and we hope for, and that we want the benefit of the month of Ramadan. Then you have to start now on yourself. Understand that there are many things to do. And we will come to them. Things like, you know, what to stop doing, what to start doing, what to practice doing mentally, how to interact with others, what are some of the general practices that a person should be doing in their life. This is not a Ramadan thing. This is life thing. This is your existence of a human being. Why are you here? What Allah created you for? What is the creation? The purpose of the creation? وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. It comes back to the same point. We did not create man or jinn except that they become subservient to Allah fully. وَمَا يَعْبُدُ إِلَّا وَمَا and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't accept illa mukhlisin. Allah doesn't accept what is pure, what is for Allah alone. So this is the essence of what we want to try to get in the month of Ramadan. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykum as-siyam kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. So taqwa is the derivative. This is how you explain the essence of your servitude and your ubudiyat. This quality of ubudiyat. Taqwa is the quality of it. When a person is totally understanding his responsibility to Allah, when he knows that, you know what, my existence is solely in the hands of Allah, everything that I do is in following the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then this is my purpose. I've understood what I am. That person is now called a muttaqi. He has the quality of taqwa. Why is he having the quality of taqwa? Is because he recognizes all the time, continuously, why he has to worship Allah. He understands why he has to stay away from certain things, why he has to do certain things. He's driven by that feeling now of recognition of Allah. So that recognition comes because he understands his role. He doesn't just, like, for example, we can understand sometimes that, okay, this is the Imam. The Imam is going to lead the Salah. You know the office of the person who is responsible for going to lead the Salah. But then if the Imam refuses to lead the Salah, will he still be the Imam? Right? The point I'm making is sometimes the person or the profession or who we are as believers, we know we were supposed to do something. We are meant to do something. In fact, everybody else understands what we're supposed to be doing. But if we don't do it, or we refuse now to do it, would you now be considered that person? No, at that time, now you have a confliction. You know what you're supposed to be doing, but you're not doing it. So a muttaqi doesn't have that problem. A muttaqi understands that this is my role, and only when I'm sick sometimes I will miss leading the salah. But besides that, I have my responsibility. I will always do my responsibility. There's nothing that stops me from doing what I have to do when I'm giving that ability, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expects me to do so. So he will always get up. He will always fulfill his role. When he is a husband, he will fulfill his role. When she's a wife, she will fulfill her role. When he's an imam, he will fulfill his responsibility. When he is a brother, a sister, whatever station you are as a person, whatever situation you're doing, you'll always remember that I'm not just a believer, but I'm supposed to act as a believer. And you will fully have enough zeal, enough willingness, enough, in fact, knowledge to be able to do that. So this is a muttaqi. A muttaqi is fearful of Allah, so he is always trying to consider, what am I doing? Am I doing it the best? Am I trying my best as a believer? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that He has given us this month of Ramadan with a certain practice in it that will, inshallah, give us this quality that brings your servitude to Allah. The quality is taqwa. The action that He's going to give us, a training ground, is fasting. Fasting is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses as a method, as a training ground, as an exercise for us to gain this quality of taqwa so that we can become true servants. Why does Siyam do that? Why does fasting do that? We take a break and get some answers. Why does fasting benefit us such that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed this as the key exercise to gain this taqwa, which is essentially will put us to that position, that station, that we can get the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and inshallah enter Jannatul Firdaus. Go ahead, I'm giving you a question there. Suppressing your desires. Anybody else?
So it's abandoning your carnal needs to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
So what you're saying is suppressing your carnal needs gets you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what it does, it actually breaks your desires. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that a person who is driven by his desires, anyone, and this is everyone's problem, it's everyone's exercise, everyone has this problem that they have to overcome. And at all given times in their life, and all given days in their life, and all given stations in their life. Meaning, there's no one time that you ever give up and you have completed this exercise, and this is now you are certified without any need of recertification. This certification only lasts for a certain point in time, and you will always have to recertify yourself. You know, like there's first aid. Now, first aid, every 2 years you have to do first aid course. So even if you are a good first aider, you wouldn't be considered uh uh, uh you know fully ready unless you recertify yourself every 2 years, right? Once you're a lame person. Another person saying here, obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's what the fasting gives you. Teaches you not to follow your nafs or obey your nafs, like the Sheikh was saying in the last khutbah. So yes, that's very, very true. So that's then brings back why we're getting to that point. Because what is the major hindrance for us to become in the station of ubudiyah, servitude, total servitude to Allah? It is nothing greater, nothing more obstructive, nothing more difficult than your nafs. Not even shaitan. Shaitan is a lesser of a issue. The bigger issue is your own nafs, your own desires. We tend to stray all the time because of our desires. This is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made following of the desires complete misguidance. That whenever a person says that, you know what, my desires should take precedent, then this themselves will become wabal or a problem to themselves. So the month of Ramadan, inshallah, and this fasting, one of the first thing it will do, it will start changing our practices. And the month of Ramadan brings about a full social type of activity. It brings about a type of energy physically, mashallah. It brings about an encouragement, communal encouragement for the month of Ramadan. It also helps us, motivates us because of the barakat of it and also the training of the shaitan. It helps us to do more ibadah. It gives us an ability to endure hardships that we may not have taken the time to endure before, to be able to reach certain stations in our spirituality. It helps us to guard against our own evil and to start pinpointing it. You know what? Hey, I'm doing this. Is this allowed? Is this acceptable in the month of Ramadan? It really gives us a heightened level of uh, our spirituality and our connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how we're supposed to be as believers. So one of the things I always mention that the month of Ramadan isn't meant to change up into becoming so super instructive that is bringing about new practices that is going to train a person, you know. The only thing that is really special about the month of Ramadan from the new ibadah is your fasting, right? But the reality is you can fast so many other sunnah days, but fasting has become prescribed that you have to do this. And also the Taraweeh in the night, we try to connect to the Quran, right? And that connection of Quran itself is something that we should be doing regardless. But Allah has implemented a system that allows us to get that that purity, purifying from the Quran, inshallah, through the month of Ramadan by listening to it. Ghazali rahimullah, he mentions that there are three levels of fasting or the month of Ramadan, the benefits of the month of Ramadan. The first one is when people, they abstain from things that do not break their fast. And this is the fasting of the masses. Whilst they prevent themselves from those things that break their fast, they don't really consider the limbs and their tongues and the things that are disliked in Islam and the things that are naturally abominable, those things that, is against the spirituality, is against the muruwa, the ethical codes and practices of a believer. It is, it is, it is just about not breaking your fast. So there are things that breaks your fast, right? Like obviously if you eat, if you drink, it breaks your fast. But these, people are so fully just looking at that aspect of it that they're not concerned about training their nafs. They're not concerned about improving their lives. They're not concerned about becoming a better person. They're not concerned about connecting to Allah. They're not concerned about are they gaining? Did they pass the exam of taqwa? Did they gain the certificate of taqwa during the month of Ramadan? So this becomes obviously a low level, a level one. So where we want to go, level three, inshallah. This level two is when a person not just stops from breaking the fast, but also he adds on the preventions of his limbs and his organs, ensuring that they do not do anything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will become displeased with. Right? You guard your tongue from backbiting, your eyes from looking at doubtful things, as well as guarding the rest of your body and parts. Imagine a person's eyes themselves commit sin, his hands commit sin, his thoughts commit sin, his tongue, the biggest sinner, right? The one that causes the most havoc, the tongue, commits sin. Do we consider that? Do we take time to see, what, am I saying this in the best way? Forget the best way. Am I saying something that's sinful? Am I saying something that is haram? Am I slandering? Am I backbiting? Such a beautiful deen that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructs the way that we speak as believers. If that alone, we remember a few months ago, I did khutbah just on your tongue. If we were to implement the advices of the tongue alone, the entire world will cut down like, a good 80% of problems in life completely. Just your tongue. It's such a heavy, organ. It's such a limb that causes so much problems. So much problems in life, in society. If you could just control that. This is why people like Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu would take gum. So in those days, they would have gum as well. That would be true, but a tasteless one, and one from natural sources. And they would put it in their mouth. Big, big, right? That it doesn't get really small when you're chewing it out. So they would chew this, and they would keep it in their mouth just to not speak too much, just to not have anything much to say. You just remain quiet. MashaAllah. Man samata najara, a person who is quiet, he is successful. What time is inshallah? 25. All right, so continuing, the level three now is the level of the pious people who are really searching Allah. Is when you add the maintenance of your fasting, the maintenance of your organs and your limbs, and also the maintenance of your heart, right? From bad thoughts, from whispers, from restricting it from allowing Allah's nur to enter. So you're very concerned about every single detail with regard to your heart. You want to ensure that your heart is becoming nourished with the month of Ramadan, and the barakat and the blessings and the nur of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enters into your heart. Cleanse your heart, cleanse your soul, and that you exit in such a way that it is of benefit to a person. Right? So in the month of Ramadan, obviously there are aspects of fasting. There are sunnah of how to start your fast. There are sunnah how to end your fast. There's sunnahs of the night. There's sunnahs of the day. There's Quran that you should be reading. There's total nourishment for your soul that should happen generally every so often, but Allah mandates it in the month of Ramadan that, you know what, all Muslims, you all have a exercise to go and do, you all have training to go and do. Now, one of the big things, and this is a human nature issue, that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala places these types of training, right? And that's why one of the hindrances, each one of us will go through this in the month of Ramadan, is we hit the month of Ramadan trying to get ready to get into that kind of training. But we're not able, we're not humanly able. We don't have good management skills with the time. We don't have good practices with our body. We lethargic. We can't make it to the masjid. We can't, keep up with the fasting. We're busy. We have so many other different responsibilities. We tend to just pass the month of Ramadan on level one, making sure you fast, right? Making sure you do a little bit of extra ibadah, making sure a little bit of salah is there and so on. But we don't maximize. When you could have scored 100, you're scoring like basic pass rate, maybe 40. 40 is only pass rate in some exams. Like law exam, for example, is 40. I can tell you that. Anyway, the point I'm making is that we really do very badly in our performance in the month of Ramadan. And reality is that the reason is because we don't plan. We don't execute a spiritual plan. We don't execute a social plan. We don't execute a physical plan. We don't execute a psychological plan mentally, psychologically. We don't have any kind of plan. So we come in the month of Ramadan. It's a high performance time. We're supposed to be doing our best. And you know what? After the third day, you're tired. Physically, you can't stand up for the Taraweeh anymore. If you notice, the first day, masjid is full. Second day, it starts a little dip. Third day, it dips a little bit. By the fourth day, you see the difference. Why? Why everybody hits it hard starting? Say, you know what, this is the month of Ramadan, I have to do this. And by the third day, they're out. Fourth day, they're disappearing. They can't keep up. It's because, how are you planning? What are you doing? So the month of Ramadan, we have to start preparing ourselves, physically. People are lazy. People are not able to stand. What is this? How can somebody not be able to stand for an hour? Yes, physically, I want to call someone a name, right? But you're weak. I mean, simple words, you're weak. How could someone in the month of Ramadan not be able to stand in Taraweeh and stand in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, listening to the Quran and man qama imanan wa ihtisaban ghufira lahu ma taqaddama min dhanbi. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam specifically said that person who stands in the month of Ramadan hoping for with faith and hoping for Allah's blessings and reward, then he will be forgiven. You can't stand, you're weak. I mean, you have, alhamdulillah, we've seen an increase, right? Some of the younger guys staying up and standing for Taraweeh and so on. People, as soon as, a few rakats, have to go to the back, have to sit down, have to lie down. It's embarrassing, really. I mean, sometimes you see people, it's ridiculous. It just feels like, just take one of this, one of them sticks, and go and like start giving them some reminders. I mean, like, really? I mean, that's what we have to push in some of these masajid and so on. Say, hey, no weak men here. We want strong men to stand at least. Stand, you're not doing anything. You're just hoping Allah forgives you and showers His mercy upon you. Don't run away. The eight rakats issue is not a fiqh issue. That's one thing that we have to be mindful of. The eight rakats issue is not a fiqh issue that, why pray eight rakats and it's only eight rakats. It's not. It's never been in our generation. For years, where people talk about 20 rakats and 8 rakats and so on, it's not about how many rakats it is. In fact, from no sides, rakats itself was an issue. It's laziness is the problem. A lazy ummah, what do you think you get? When there's an option saying 8, what do you think they're going to choose? 8, well, people says 8, so it must be 8. You know what? You're lazy. It's just straightforward. You're laziness. So it's not based on seeking Allah, right? It's based on complete laziness, and may Allah protect us all. We all have these hurdles to overcome. We need to start becoming more mindful of these issues and try to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the way that we should. So as I said, the biggest reason why the month of Ramadan is a failure for so many believers is because of the laziness, because of the not being prepared for the month of Ramadan, not being able to stay away from food. I've had people telling me that, you know what, this month of Ramadan, I'm going to, it's going to be really hard because I love food. I love to eat. I love to stuff my stomach until it's so full that I can't move. That's the kind of eating I like to eat. So the month of Ramadan, is so hard because I can't do that and enjoy it. It's a sickness in itself, right? There people have, that button, a person who is a stomach-oriented person, meaning you could probably call it a foodie, right? I mean, what I'm saying is, look at our society, right? It's made certain practices commendable, but yet they're completely against the spirit of Islam. There's so many things, and throughout our society, like the way that we talk to each other, the way that we interact with each other, the types of words that people use, the types of actions they think, the practices of how the norms are, what youth are getting involved in, so it's not in the spirit of Islam. Many things that we do, the way they dress, the way that we enjoy. Like for example, I'll just give you a quick example because we have to close off, right? I've had someone you know, it's a thing, right? To go to Disney World. I've mentioned this already. People go, especially to go for holiday in Disney World. Absolute rubbish from an Islamic perspective. The worst vacation that you can do as a believer is to go to Disney World. This is like the lowest level of believer of a vacation that you can go to. I mean, obviously there could be some worse ones, but I mean from the halal or from what you would say still maintaining, not going very deep in red sin. Disney itself is so evil as an organization. How can a believer feel comfortable going to Disney World? But yet that's praised and that's thing, go to Umrah. Go to Umrah. People spend, just recently somebody telling me that they spend 60, no, at least minimum 10,000 US in a visit to um to Disney World with just a few family members. Minimum. This is the lowest level. It's ridiculous. What is wrong with the believers these days? And you think this is to be the norm. May Allah protect us all because we have to get this spiritual lens back on. We need to purify our hearts again. See where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us success and be able to absorb that success so that we can become successful in this world and hereafter. Follow the legacy of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Follow the practice of the pious predecessors. Understand what they were stood for. Understand their practices and what they sought to be, blessed and beneficial for the month of Ramadan. So I'll end with this. The pious predecessors used to prepare themselves for the month of Ramadan. So next week, inshallah, we'll talk about some of those preparations from all these aspects that I spoke about. But remember what I said, that the essence of the month of Ramadan is to realize that you're nothing and that Allah is everything. And when you get that sense of ubudiyat, this is the ubudiyat. This is where the Prophet ﷺ rose. When he became nothing to Allah, then Allah raised him to the highest of all stations. He has the pinnacle of ubudiyat, this quality. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all that quality. Ameen. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. جزاكم الله. السلام عليكم.